Hello, today we're gonna talk about the craft dimension among three different dimensions in public management. So today's agenda is Thiel and Lynn's Chapter 7, Public Management the Craft Dimension, and Thiel or Levy's 2002 article, The Performance Paradox in the Public Sector. So today we are looking at management craft dimension of public management. When we think about the craft, we are really looking at the role of managers as creators, not as creatures. So managers are actively involved the public sector in shaping the environment in which they working operate. In particular, they can exert influence on the structure of the organization and the organizational culture, yet occur to mention that we've already examined. So when we think about managers and what they can do in terms of the organizational change, organizational leadership, in particular, they can focus attention within the organization on strategies. They can identify and focus attention on goals, and they can orient the organization more towards institutionalized performance measurement and management. So here, background, what is craft? Managerial craft may be defined as responses by individual public managers to the challenges and the opportunities inherent in their position. So according to the author in the textbook, the craft, the meaning is equal to skilled practice. So personal characteristics and individuals' actions that a particular manager brings to a situation are a reflection of his or her craft. So there are some evolution of the craft perspective. According to the author of the textbook, the emergence and development of craft-oriented or behavior view of public management. For example, Chester Bernard's The Function of the Executive, they first invented the concept of craft, and later Herbert Simon in 1948 the administrative behavior. His book, he mentions some concept regarding craft perspective of public managers, and later Sayre and James March behavior theory of the film in 1963. And then after that, human relations school came up to the PF field. So I'm sure some of you may be aware of, the familiar with some concept regarding Maslow's hierarchical, the table, and the macro the theory X and theory Y. Theory X means that more mechanic organisms, but theory Y conceptually means that organization need to consider, pay attention to the human sectors. It's more relational factor and individual factor in decision making and their management. And then the behavior approach came to the management concepts. The concept underlining this approach is that concerns for choices, decisions, and outcomes for the political skills is needed to perform effectively in specific managerial positions. And also they take their look at the psychological and emotional dimensions and approaches of managing public organization. And later, there are typecasting of managers regarding assessing managerial type, and do some people make better managers than others? We need to think about these questions. So later, assessing managerial types. There are several types of managerial, concepts. Does personality and managerial types Myers-Briggs type indicator? Also summarized at MBTI, there are some different type of personality. So they made some concepts, sensing S, intuition N, thinking T, and feeling F. So this is some type of managerial leaders and managers, and also some basis of intentional behavior. They made some dichotomy between introverts and extroverts and perceiving or judging. So this is just conceptual framework representing, craft and concept of public managers. So in line with the MBTI approach, there are some managerial personality can be divided into these four factors. This is not that I'm not going to the detail of this table. And then some people make better managers than others. Underlining this concept, there are some implications like this. The effectiveness of public managers is proportionally to the quality or appropriateness of their personality, skills, and motivations. So there are such a thing as a managerial personality that enables those who possess it to outperform those who are less well in those no matter what the context in which they are working. And there are some examples mentioned in the book, and also it can be concluded that achievement is favored by a good match of individual skills and the organization tasks attempted. And the favorable match of skills to task must be reinforced by the favorable historical conditions if there's to be significant achievements, which means the individual skill and organizational task are fundamental to manage public sector, and also in response to some historical or environmental condition and changes that might be changed as well. And then managers as a decision maker. Of course, public managers should make some decision in their organization. So there are some main concepts like this. Deliberation should be involved in the process in decision making. And also managers should be rational, theoretically and technically. And also there are some alternatives to this rationality. You may recall that Herbert Simon bounded rationality, which means that in practice, public managers and people lack limited, of course, lack their ability to predict future and our goals, something like this. So which means the public sector and public managers have some limited time and resources in their decision making. Also, there are some prospect theory and cognitive dissonation and group thinking. So if public managers lack some, efforts or resources in their decision making, they have to think about some alternative like this. Grouping and cognitive dissonation with other stakeholders, something like that. And also managers should be rational. Of course, a rational individual means that the people should pursue their goals and interests in which they are efficient in the use of scarce resources of time, attention, and money to maximize goal attainment, of course. And then they can judge or weigh the cost and benefits of alternatives way of pursuing their goals and make decisions that are consistent and transparent in the light of that analysis, which means this is the rational approach and rational public managers doing. So in a managerial context, rationality has something to do with thinking, reason, and reasoning processes. And an action seems rational if it is agreeable to reason, if it is not observed and preposterous, and extravagant or foolish, but rather intelligent, sensible, self-conscious, deliberated, and calculated, which means that managers need to be more rational when they're decision making or choosing one option between several alternatives. And then more specifically, there are some bounded rationality concept like this. I already mentioned that Herbert Simon mentioned the word named bounded rationality. This means the individuals are limited in how well they solve complex problems, in how much effort they can make to search for, store, retrieve, and analyze information. They tend to resort to shortcuts that reduce stress and increase their confidence in the choices. It's fun, some typo, I'm sorry. But their choice making is not irrational. There's a kind of rationality in resorting to shortcuts that is the practical, cognitive, and emotional burdens of decision making. Of course, instead of optimizing, decision maker prefer satisfying. We need to satisfy in practice, in reality, of settling for an adequate solution to a problem given the cost of doing more. So I put the website link regarding bounded rationality. If you are interested in this concept, please watch this video using this address. And later, more specifically, there are concepts represent prospect theory. The Kahneman and I'm not sure the pronunciation, Tversky's prospect theory. According to theory, it was found that decisions depending on the way that the prospective consequences of decisions or prospects are framed, that is, presented or described. So usually prospects may be viewed as positive or negative deviations from a neutral reference point or starting point, which is often status quo. So above such a point, for example, when prospect involves possibly gains, individuals tend to be risk averse. Of course, the below such as point, for example, when prospects involve possibly losses, individuals tend to take more risks, which is very interesting. So if you are interested in more detail, please watch the YouTube video using this website. I found some video regarding this concept, and also another alternative regarding cognitive dissonance. Leeuw Festinger's concept of cognitive dissonance. Underlining this concept, it was found that individuals research when they have a conflict of cognition defined as mental acquisitions of knowledge through thought, experience, or the senses. So a person in a state of cognitive dissonance will tend to seek consonance. So how to seek consonance? Reevaluation all prior beliefs and change your cognition. Think differently. Eliminate the conflict by denying its validity and refuse to recognize the validity of all dissonant cognitions and never listen to a particular advisor and screen them out. This is very aggressive concept, but this is one of the alternatives besides rational thinking. And also another alternative is that using groupthink, like brainstorming or using, how can I say it, some discussion or brown bag studying with other scholars and other group members. So Irving Janis's group thinking. Group thinking refers to a deterioration of mental efficiency, reality testing, and moral judgment that results from in-group pressures. The main principle of group thinking is that like this: the more amiability and esprit de corps there's among the members of a policymaking in-group, the greater the danger that independent critical thinking will be replaced by groupthink, which is likely to result in irrational and dehumanizing actions directed against outgroups. So some symptom like this, I'm not review the detail. Please read yourself. And then craftsmanship and rationality. So how to overcome unreasonable leads to distort deliberation and decision making. There are some ways to overcome these concepts. So group conventional should withhold judgment until a full airing of members' view has taken place, or the public managers should consider that the individual assigned the role of devil's advocate can challenge any suggestion presented and reduce the stigma associated with being the first to dissent. Maybe. And anonymous or private feedback can be a useful remedy for groupthink. Of course, feedback is important, and other solutions may include the dividing members into subgroups to consider particularly vexing issues, maybe team-based working, or discussing any differences in their views and recommendation, and drawing on outside experts, and scheduling subsequent meetings at which dissent is invited. Right, maybe external members, inviting some scholars, they can share their opinion. And also the public manager need to learn others and others examples and other public organizations examples. So there are some strategies to learn decision-making, implementation, best practices and paradigms and ideologies and scientific research and evidence-based policy and practices. This is main theme of this class, and institutions providing analysis and expertise and learning from others, of course. So main assumption underlying this concept learning managers is that learning may help managers work their specific tools manager can use to learn not just about the organization but about the problem itself. So best practices and some efforts has arisen in the last couple decades, and there are a lot of institution organization websites that are promoting best practices. So that might be one of the examples representing this concept and also best practices. It means that those processes and strategies and techniques that have been shown through various methods of analysis to contribute to the success of a manager, an activity and program or an organization. So there are some examples mentioned addressed in the textbook. I hope you read by yourself. And there are another concept about learning, paradigm and ideology. Of course, our society, there are some paradigms and ideology in each society. So, for example, Thomas Kuhn's the book, The Structure of Scientific Revolutions, he mentioned that scientific paradigms means that general agreements among members of a scientific community as to what's to be observed and scrutinized. And also it can be defined as a dominant paradigm, so which can be changed, but only after a buildup of contrary evidence raising questions it can no longer be ignored. So paradigm means the concept and values and shared practices that constitute a specific way of viewing reality for the group or community that shares them. So managerial learning may be guided or framed or concisely or unconcisely by ideologies, shared values, and other closed system of thought. And also there are scientific research can be one of the way of learning. The symbiotic relationship between science and government. There are some, scientific methods in public sector, planning, programming, budgeting system, PPB. This is the one of the example of scientific research, scientific-based public budgeting. So that may be one of the example, and policy analysis based on benefit cost-oriented paradigms. The comparing their cost and benefit of a certain type of public program, which is also, one example of the scientific research regarding learning. Also, our theme, evidence-based policy and practices, which is obviously, one way of learning for public managers and public organization, and also they can use the institutional concept, providing analysis and expertise. So there are some, several institutions: Asian Society, American Enterprise Institute, Brookings Institution, and Cato Institution in DC, and Center for American Progress, and Heritage Foundation, Hudson Institute, and Manhattan Institute, and New American Foundation, and Rand Corporation, which is big, policy analysis institution in California. These are, making some policies and some guidance that can be one of the way of learning for public managers. And also public managers also they should be, strategic in addition to rational and decision maker. So we need to think about what is a strategy and framing and reframing, navigating the terrain, public sector, anticipating how hard the problem will be, and working from a group of entrepreneurship. So now what is a strategy? So strategic management, public management, defined by Boseman and Strassman, is guided by four principles, basically. Concern with the long term, integration of goals and objectives into a coherent hierarchy, and recognition that strategic management and planning are not self-implementing, and most important is an external perspective emphasizing not adapting to the environment but anticipating and shaping of environmental change. So of course the strategy should be long-term, and also there should be aligned with goals and objectives in the context of hierarchical, organization, and also external perspective should be emphasized in response to environmental change. And also strategy management and planning also should be, exercised at the same time. This is the basic concept of strategic problem management. So strategy means that the plan for interacting with the competitive environment to achieve higher and satisfactory organizational goals. So goal means that where the organization wants to go in the future, and strategies and how it will get there. The public manager's implementation and planning and management. So there are some, figures, strategic planning and management. From where you are, you need to think about, internal factors in the organization like people, skills and budget and support and communication and structure and system. And then we need to turn to the where you want to be. So we need to think about our goal and vision. And also we need to think about that how to get there. We need to think about strategic plan and hiring training plan and budget allocation. This is representing strategic implementation. So more specifically, strategic management, according to the textbook, it means that the appropriate and reasonable integration of strategic planning and implementation across an organization or other entity in an ongoing way to enhance the fulfillment of mission, meeting of mandates, and sustain this creation of public value. So technically and more specifically, there's a visual difference between strategic planning and implementation. So first, the strategic planning means that a deliberate, disciplined effort to produce fundamental decisions and actions that are shape, guide what an organization or other entity is, what it does, and why it does it. On the other hand, implementation means that the ongoing effort, managerial effort, to realize in practice an organization's or other entities' missions, goals, and strategy, the meeting of its mandates, continued organizational learning, and the ongoing creation of public value. So obviously there are some difference between planning and in practice implementation. And also we need to think about leadership because the public manager should be leader in some cases. So we need to think about the theory about leadership and what it can be worked in practice. So leadership means that like this, a process whereby an individual influences a group of individuals to achieve a common goals. So you need to think about what stands for leadership in public sector, and I'm not going to explain the detail. And there are some different views of leadership, trade definition of leadership, and then process definition of the leadership. So there might be some difference between like this. Skip this. And then public sector leadership in theory. There are several theories regarding, public managers leadership like this. Of course, there are 4 different types of leadership, focusing on the trait and focusing on the situation, and more importantly, transformational change, which means the transformational leader, and also value-based leadership. There are a specific difference between across 4 different concepts, so I'm going to skip this part as well. And most importantly, there are 2 dichotomy, transactional leadership, transformational leadership. This is very important concept. So according to the Byrne in 1978's article or book, he mentioned that transactional leadership means that the leader motivates followers by recognizing their needs and providing rewards to fulfill those needs in exchange for their performance and support. On the other hand, the transformational leadership, which is very important and needed in our reality, the leaders should raise the followers' goals to higher plans to a focus on higher level goals akin to the self-actualization needs. So they tend to motivate followers to transcend their own narrow self-interest in pursuit of these goals for the benefit of the community of the nation, which means their goals and interests should be in the line with the public interest in more macro level. So we need to this type of transformational leadership in our society in the public sector. And also there are one different type of the charismatic leadership. So you can read by yourself, I think. And then does managerial craftsman matter? Of course it is matter because the managerial craftsman, managerial leader should have some skills and should have some decision making, skill as well. And they need to some strategy and tools in managing their organization. So these concepts, the craftsmanship, skill, decision making, and strategy and tool, those are intertwined together to representing managerial craftsmanship in the public sector. And then the next article, the performance paradox in the public sector. This is very simple. In 1980 and 70s, we all know that the new public management came to the public sector and public administration. The main aim about this concept is to cut budget, to reduce the public money, and to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of government bureaucracy towards more smaller but more effective. So most important scholar in PA field, Osborne and Gabler in 1992, in Reinventing Government, their book, they mentioned that this concept, staring, not roaring. So they pay attention to the concept contracting out or privatization using, some non-governmental organization outside of the public sector. So underlying this concept includes that also result-based management and performance measurement and evaluation in the public sector. But the thing is, we also encounter some unintended consequences of this type of the performance measurement. So for example, within central government, the number of evaluation organization unit or divisions has increased unexpectedly, and also unrelated expenditures of that kind of measurement activities has very increases. And also evaluation information that lacks reliability, availability, or credibility sometimes. So they sometimes, did not pay attention to the really important public value like transparency, accountability, or democracy. So this is the example about the unintended consequences of the performance measurement. And also in the line with the previous slides, we need to think about some challenges like measurement errors and problem concerning the contents, position, and amount of measures, and monitoring cost, of course, might be higher unexpectedly, and it is unclear what is actually being measured. Should be typo. D should be D. When we think about the quality of the service, based on the current measurement, we don't know if they are measured the quality or not, besides the quantity of the services. So that's the key of the challenges. So according to the Smith in 1998, she mentioned the 8 different kind of the unintended consequences of monitoring and evaluating in performance measurement processes. like ossification, a lack of innovation, and tunnel vision and sub-optimization, and also major fixation. So when you read yourself the article, we'll know the detail. So, and also, for example, in the education sector, too much focus on criteria, benchmarks, and other evaluation tools has led to mediocre institutions mimicking the outward appearance of prestige universities rather than improving their teaching. So, which means all different universities maybe look the same or similar in the end. So that might be some challenges of the embedded in the public management evaluation process. This is also same concept. So this paradox, this problem can be caused by the tendency of performance indicator to run down over time. The paradox might be about performance itself, but about the reports on performance. So indicators do not give an accurate report of performance because they didn't pay attention to the quality or public values embedded in the sector or services. So again, unintended performance paradox can be the result of minimal accountability requirements, of course, and the analysis of annual reports shows that the output and input indicator can be used more often, but in practice, productivity indicator and quality measurement, I already mentioned that, and cost price can be, challenges of the measurement and performance management process. So the conclusion, to overcome these challenges, we need to think about differently. So maybe one of the solution is that to use multiple indicator and think about differently using policy implementation. So, considering both tangible as well as the non-tangible factors. And of course, we need to think about the allowing other stakeholders, all stakeholders, external viewpoints into the decision making and performance measurement. So when you think about, we can invite politicians and managers and founders and providers and purchasers, of consumers, some citizens, they need to, making some survey, they can report their satisfaction or they can express their complaints regarding the public program and service deliveries that may be, the engaging their, allowing their participation in measuring public services and public program that might be helpful, to add up the current measurement system. So again, the rise of number of new monitoring mechanisms can be helpful using internet or citizen charters, again, open government code of practice and new complaint procedure, again, like the complaint and satisfaction survey. Or we can think about new, more horizontal forms of a performance evaluation that might be helpful against unintended consequences like the performance paradox. That is the main concept, and I hope you read the article again. And so this week's discussion question is, I want you to read the chapter 7, the last pages, page 284 through 286. I need you to read the examples regarding the archicraft. So based on what we covered in this class and theories and basic concepts, I need to analyze this case regarding edgecraft capacities and strategies as a leader. And I want to answer this question by, March 26th, in 2 weeks, Friday, Thursday, right? So Thursday, 11:59 p.m. Thank you. I hope you have a great spring break.